Hello and welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Travel Coffee Break. It's going to be probably quite a quick one this week. I did actually have, I'll just get rid of the bumper screen there. I did actually have a bunch of people lined up in theory for this week, but as time wore on, they slowly disappeared and dissipated. So it's down to me, and Oliver Grabwell's turned up because Oliver, you've been, I think, out in South Africa. So we were going to talk about World Travel Market Africa. Before we do, though, let me just explain what has been happening over the last week, because I had said that I was going to try and do some pop-up Hangouts. These are these things that I try to do, as it were, in the field with the laptop, and at short notice. So in other words, I send the invitation out about 10 minutes beforehand, and usually collar a guest and then start talking. And if anybody can join us, that's great. But in this particular case, I realized, in fact, Simon Vaness was saying last week, "Oh, you're going to have your work cut out. It's a cruise ship, you know." the internet connection is not always 100% reliable because it's satellite-based and it can be slow and blah 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 blah. And so, yes, in fact, I spent last week, from last Thursday, on board Norwegian Epic in the Mediterranean, and the one time when I did have a chance to do a pop-up hangout and set up the machine and everything else, and got my guest in the form of Francis Riley, who's none other than the Vice President and General Manager International of Norwegian Cruise Lines. The connection failed me, even though not an hour or so earlier it had been okay. So there you go. That's life. That's the way it goes. And here we are back again on the usual Wednesday slot. Just to let you know, though, while I'm actually got the information to hand, or at least while I've got my little where is it collection of photographs somewhere to hand. Here we go. I don't know if you can see these. Yes, you should be able to. Yep. These are just some of the pictures I took, and just so to fill in the blanks, as it were. This is a Norwegian Epic. Picture here of her stern. There we go. And she is the world's third largest cruise ship. That's after Royal Caribbean's what are they called? Oasis class ships, Allure of the Oasis of the Seas and Allure of the Seas. And so she weighs in at some. I forget what it is now, but in passenger terms, it's 4,100. And since she was built and launched in 2010, and quite a few bloggers and journalists have been on her, she's generated an awful lot of interest in social media. The Norwegian Cruise Lines have actually built two more ships, the Getaway class ships, and they are just a little bit smaller, 4,028, would you believe, passengers, but they got two in the pipeline now, which will be just over and will take over as the largest cruise ships. But anyway, the point is that I'm writing now a large post. It's already at 1,500 words, and so desperately needs to be culled a bit. But either way, it's about how interesting I thought this was, because I hadn't fully figured. You can't see it here, but on another picture, I've got an image of her. What do they call it? The strap line that she has on her hull. Freestyle cruising, can't see it there. And here we are, freestyle cruising. And I used to think when they first launched this idea, and freestyle cruising wasn't unique to Norwegian Epic. They've been this has been a development of Norwegians since about 2004, I think, thereabouts, and was introduced really across the fleet, but particularly when it comes to dining. But I thought that it was just simply a response to the way that, perceptions used to be about cruising that it was, very ordered and for fuddy-duddies and all that kind of thing, and regimented dining times and stuff like that. And I thought it was just sort of a way of getting around that by saying, okay, well, we'll have some nice other eateries on board, like Italian restaurants and things like that. But actually, I've begun to realise that it's much bigger than that, and I must say I'm quite impressed with Norwegian in the range of things that they offer, not only in terms of food, not only in terms of entertainment and venues and experiences, but also in terms of accommodation. And what I'm really surprised at is the way in which, actually, on a ship that size, they are now catering for pretty much everybody. Mums and dads, couples, teenagers, the people who would normally go for the 5-stroke 6-star luxury cruising experience. They have their own, what do they call it, a ship within a ship, an exclusive area with its own pool, with its own facilities, and 24-hour butler and all that kind of thing. And at the same time, of course, what you can't get in terms of the competition, those other 5-star cruise lines can't offer, is the sheer scale of activities and shows. Think shows like the Blue Man Group and like the Cirque Dreams and Dining Experience. And Legends of Rock as well. There are some big shows, and of course those smaller cruise lines can't really offer that. And on top of that, there's also the whole business of solo travelers. What they've also developed now is a part of the ship, again, a little exclusive part where they've got studio cabins designed for single travelers. And very popular. In fact, they sell out apparently before most other cabins, probably because of price, because they're not they're priced competitively with ordinary cabins, which of course attract the supplement, the single supplement. But these cabins are in a collection together with, again, their own exclusive bar and lounge area, and in fact the whole thing rather feels like an upmarket hostel. So they cater for young solo travellers as well, and I think that's an astonishing range that Norwegian Cruise Lines managed to cram into what is, I suppose, a giant ship, and their entire fleet of now 13 ships. Soon to be 15. So yes, so a great weekend, and I will be posting about that in depth and detail. But coming to my only guest, and by the way, I'll just have a quick check on Twitter. If you use the hashtag TCBHOA, then you can alert me. I forgot to set up the Q&A app on this when I started it, this tonight's Hangout on air. So if you want to attract my attention, probably that's the best place to do it, on Twitter, and use the TCBHOA hashtag. But my only guest as things stand at the moment is Oliver Grabwell, and Oliver did say that he would pop in probably when he got back from South Africa, Cape Town, I think, wasn't it, Ollie, where we've had World Travel Market Africa.
Is it me? Sorry, I was just doing my shopping online. I was
Sorry, I've been blathering on for 10 minutes, I see, so yes, over to you now.
I'm only kidding. I was actually checking Twitter for you. I got back just over a week ago from Cape Town for World Travel Market Africa, which was their first show. And it's a long way to travel, is my abiding memory.
Same time zone, though.
1 hour difference.
Yeah, but you're not, it's not that business of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning feeling, hyper.
It's just that business of not being able to sleep on a plane for 12 hours.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was good, though. It was good. It was my second time flying World Travel Plus with British Airways, and I have to say I was impressed. On the way out there was a girl who was, what's the phrase, they only have one person looking after the World Travel Plus cabin. So the air stewardess she was okay, nothing to write home about. But the girl on the way back, she was a youngish lass. Turns out she's from Blackburn near me,
Mhm.
and she was really, really very good. Much more attentive, much better, much friendlier. She had a personality which always helps when you're talking to 30 people. So no, she was very good. So I spoke to the sort of manager on the plane and whatnot, because I think people always moan and complain about bad service on planes, bad service on cruise ships. But when do people ever say, actually, that was quite good? So hats off to them. I heard a lot of people when I was in Cape Town complaining about British Airways, and I've never had a problem with them. They were very good.
Mm. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's really important when you do get something that's a bit special, to make a fuss about it, to say something about it, because as you say, it tends to be the other way around. People, are loudest when they're complaining, and that actually transfers to the review sites, the TripAdvisors and all the rest. I mean, people rush to write thousands of words when they feel offended and affronted and cheated and all those sorts of things. But if they've had a great time and they're chilled and they're back at home, they don't rush to write 1,000 words on just what a fab time it was. So yeah, you're right. It does need doing.
But no, it was the first show for WTM in Africa, and obviously Reed Travel Exhibitions, who own WTM, they have hundreds and hundreds of different shows. So they put on Africa Travel Week at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, CTICC. So they had they had IBTM, which is all about business travel, incentives, meetings, and they had ILTM, which is obviously about luxury. Then they had the WTM show itself. So they were, literally they took the whole of the convention centre for a week basically.
How, this was their first one, wasn't it?
This is their very first show. So they did obviously. They always do IBTM and ILTM, I believe, in Cape Town. So they just thought, okay, well, they did more than just think. They said, right, let's put WTM on these dates. So it was a Friday and a Saturday, 2 weeks on this Friday coming. It will be. It was their first show. So if you've ever been to WTM London, if you imagine what one of those two halls are like, because of course they have the North and the South Hall, it's probably about 20% of one of those halls. Okay. So it was a very big show, and it surprised me when I was talking to the colleagues there. They were telling me how it's 10% of this, and there's not going to be that many. But when I was in the speaker room overlooking the hall, you actually see that there's a lot of people there. And
we should just say, incidentally, for anybody who's a bit confused, because we talk easily about WTM, but what we mean by that is World Travel Market, which in its original and core identity persona is a massive trade show held at Excel now in London, and I forget, Ollie, you'll remember what the numbers are, but it's about 38,000.
It's 50,000 people.
50,000, yeah. Over a course of the most part of a week. It usually runs from Monday to Thursday, and since then there have been these other. They've as it were franchised out the show around the world to other venues, because they do Latin America, don't they? And they do
Latin America now, yep.
And they do the Middle East.
Yes, but a different name. It's Arabian Travel Market.
All right.
So that's a different show and a different approach. It's hard to describe, and I'll not bore you and the listeners for going through the details. But World Travel Market and Arabian Travel Market, they do have slightly different approaches and slightly different brands and such. But yeah, Reed Travel Exhibitions do lots of things in travel, and of course they're part of Reed Exhibitions, which do all sorts. Just go onto the website, you'll see just how many shows they've got. It's mind-boggling. They also do. What was I going to say? They do a really big luxury show in Cannes that Anna Silva O'Reilly's been to, the luxury travel blogger, and they do EBTM, I think it is, or EIBTM in Barcelona. That a few bloggers in Spain go to. So I think people don't always realise that it's almost like the World Travel Market family that they're sort of attending. But yeah, back to the show itself. I wasn't sure what to expect. When I go to London, I of course have a lot of meetings and a lot of reasons to attend, not just to speak. But for World Travel Market,
not least because you actually do organise some of the speaking programme at World Travel Market in London.
Well, I organise the blogging sessions at World Travel Market London. So for WTM Africa, they asked me really to just attend to put on a couple of sessions for bloggers. And what I did, as well as putting on two sessions, is on the Thursday night we had the TBU WTM Blogger Social at the DoubleTree by Hilton, Cape Town.
TBU for listeners,
Travel Bloggers Unite,
which is your.
which is my organisation. Yes. If you click on my photo, you'll see the TBU hashtag, and you also see my radiator. But yeah, it's more about the TBU logo there. If you remember, every WTM, I always have a networking evening or networking drinks of some kind. So, of course, we did that this time, and the whole idea is really to bring bloggers, whichever market we're operating in. Same in Latin America, always the same in London, and of course now with Cape Town. The idea is to bring people together to do what we're good at, which is connecting people. The DoubleTree brand is always very supportive of bloggers, and especially the DoubleTree Cape Town Upper East Side Hotel, very supportive of bloggers. And they put on a great show, a great spread. They had some wine tasting, with like a wine presentation, and it was this fantastic invention. I don't know why nobody's ever thought about it. You can get these like trays for canapes. I don't know. Hang on, can you see me here? You can get trays for canapes. So where are we? Back to front. So imagine this is a tray. What you do, you're eating, but how do you hold your hand? Sorry, what do you do with your wine glass? So what they do is they've put the tray so at the sort of back here, the wine glass can slot in, and so you can hold the canapé tray and nibble, and your wine glass is secure as well. It was such a popular this discovery. I can't begin to tell you. It really was. People were tweeting, taking photos, but it was a good show. It was a good event. So then, obviously, at the show itself, the idea is to put on a couple of sessions that are interesting for travel bloggers and also interesting for the trade. So as ever, they were well attended. The first session was, how travel bloggers impact the booking funnel? So actually, for layman's terms, how do travel bloggers generate sales for your business?
Mm-hmm.
And the sorts of different things that they do that can generate sales, and at what stage. So it's not as if they're a traditional marketing medium, which, obviously the traditional funnel is top down, and then the sort of result is very at the end. Every stage of what a travel blog is doing can generate sales. So the announcement, hey, I'm going to Perugia for my holiday. This is what I'm going to be doing. That's immediately generating interest and sales. When they're there, hey, this is what I'm doing right here, right now. And then afterwards, and then all the different aspects. And of course, there's all sorts of case studies now in our industry of the great work that bloggers are doing. So we introduced a couple of those. But the key thing here is this was very much an African influenced show. So we had Mariette Dutoit Helmbold, who's the ex-CEO of Cape Town Tourism, who's now got the company Destiny, where she works on she works as an agency helping destinations and brands with marketing and social media help. Mm-hmm. She's been working with Keith, my ambassador, and they're doing the Stellenbosch campaign just this past week.
Again, let's just wind back. So the iAmbassador program, or rather group, is a collective of bloggers. Run principally by Keith Jenkins and Melvin Bosher, and it's basically they work on campaigns with destinations like South Africa they worked with in the past, or at least Cape Town, I think, and Mauritius and places like that. And so they're very often well placed to present ideas like this and statistics and case studies and the like. Continue.
Thanks so much. So we had Mariette, and then we also had Mariska Govender, who's Mzanzigo online. Excuse me. Just also giving her African travel blogger sort of slant to the proceedings. And it was very popular indeed. So then the next day we had...
How many people attended?
There's 100 seats, and it was full.
Excellent.
People stood outside. They built the speaker area, if you like, the theatre inside the show floor, rather than being in a separate room.
Oh, right.
They took obviously a great big chunk of the exhibition floor space, and put then obviously some barriers up and all the AV and the stage and such. So it was quite easy to get to, which was good. Then the next day we had Velma Kokoran from Cape Town Tourism and Anton Crone, who's an African blogger. Incidentally, he's also from Zimbabwe, Gary Bembridge, and if you listen to both of them, you'd never realise, because Gary's archetypal Londoner now, and Anton's very much got the accent, which is quite interesting. And he's also got a global agency background like Gary has, which is also curious. So the idea of is it possible to measure travel blogger ROI is really, again, I mean, we know the answers, Alistair, but it's not about looking at it like traditional media. It's I suppose it was a follow-on from the first session, which is, so this is how they generate sales, or how they can generate sales. So this is how you can potentially consider measuring the ROI. And something that I always say is, it goes back to, what is it you want to achieve? What's happening right now? And it was quite an interesting discussion. The slides should be on the WTM website. I'll double check for you as we're speaking, actually. But essentially, Velma was talking about it from a travel industry point of view. And Cape Town Tourism, even before all the blogger campaigns started, love Cape Town, the hashtag and the campaigns. And what they've done is they've really, really connected their blogger campaigns and social media outreach with the people of Cape Town, which is something that we don't always see, and it's something that I think is a really good effort.
So they're tracking them, or they're in some way publicising them?
Say that last little bit again.
Are they tracking them statistically, or are you saying that what they're doing is that the way they're being clever is that they're publicising them maybe through traditional media or something like that?
Okay, so what I was saying was that basically Cape Town, the reason why we asked them to speak, one, because we're in Cape Town, two, because they've got a lot of experience of doing blogger outreach, blogger projects, social media, and when they do their projects, they connect them with the local people quite well. We've obviously radio coverage, media coverage, hashtags, etc.
Yeah.
And that's always very interesting, and I think when you have a destination that's really up there in terms of working with bloggers, you have to have them on board. And like I said, it helped the fact that we were in Cape Town, so it was quite an easy decision. And then obviously Anton was talking from a travel blogger's point of view and looking at, well, essentially if you have a blogger on a free trip with a free flight, free hotel, etc., that's one thing. But if you're really wanting to get the full benefit from a blogger, then basically pay them. They're not a journalist. And I always say, don't ever think of bloggers as journalists, and that's it. Sure, rules of quality, rules of transparency, rules of research should always apply. But what they provide is on a totally different level and kettle of fish to journalists. So essentially, Anton was talking about there's lots of different ways that you can measure ROI. So do you measure it in sales? What is the value of hashtags? What is the value of outreach, etc., etc.? And it's still, I think, difficult to measure. One of the things that effectively we said, which is similar to a video that's appeared online by Gary Vaynerchuk, which is what's the ROI of your mother? So what Gary was basically saying is when he gets asked about measuring ROI and this and that and the other, he was talking to a marketing director once, and he turned around and said, okay, can you tell me what's the ROI of your mother? Because sometimes you can't give a definitive answer that makes you feel comfortable, that's on paper, that you can take you to your board of directors or your immediate supervisor. You have to look at everything. And I think especially with, we were talking about the long-tail benefit that bloggers provide. It's not just the immediate trip and the immediate post-trip coverage, and then that's it, see you later. The sort of coverage has disappeared. We say it so many times with the digital online world, with sort of information and data staying online, unless you ask Google to remove it. Then people are always going to benefit. So when do you measure the ROI as well? Do you measure it immediately after the trip? Do you measure it after 6 months? Do you measure it after 2 years? How do you measure the ROI, and what point do you measure it? And I think what Gary Vaynerchuk said, which was essentially, sometimes you can't measure everything, and unfortunately, people in a marketing and an accounting background like to be able to put their hand on every single little item of everything, don't they?
I think one of the important things with this subject, and as you know, it's one that we've talked about often before, is that one of the best ways to deal with it, and particularly to to produce something that is meaningful for the bean counters, the commercial director, and the like, is to establish quite clearly from the start a set of targets, KPIs, key performance indicators, and say, okay, out of this particular campaign, this particular event, this particular fam trip, whatever it might be, what we're hoping to see within 3 months or so is this percentage increase in traffic to the website, or to that page on the website, or to that element, or this number of inquiries about that particular feature, or whatever it might be, and that's I think a very reasonable way of doing it, and it satisfies a lot of questions from those who are responsible for budgets. It's difficult, as you say, to track everything right the way back to actual sales, and that's I mean, it should be easier. Perhaps it is easier than it was in the old days of traditional media, but all the same, it is very hard to track back, and so establishing a firm set of targets, simple targets to achieve and simple ones to track, is very important.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And one of the comments I'd like to make is there's an awful lot of potential in the blogging community in South Africa. There's an awful lot of very capable, very dedicated, enthusiastic bloggers. Obviously, they're going to be somewhat hindered by the size of the market in Africa, the economy, etc., etc. But there's an awful lot of good bloggers, and there's an awful lot of very capable people. And it was really very encouraging to see just the enthusiasm people changed flights so they could arrive and attend our DoubleTree, drinks event. Mm-hmm. People were sort of driving, setting off a day earlier from Port Elizabeth so they could come along to everything that was taking place. And, I think that's very encouraging. So you never know. You never know. You might see TBU again at WTM Africa next year, fingers crossed.
I was about to say, is there going to be a WTM Africa again?
Yeah, WTM Africa's next year.
Okay.
I think it's 13th, 14th, 15th of April, but don't hold me to that just yet.
Okay. And a worthwhile exercise for all involved.
I believe so, yeah. WTM were happy. Obviously, the bloggers went through the door. One of the interesting things we did was this paper blogger passport. So, essentially, I remember when I worked for Gold Medal Travel many moons ago, and Travel Weekly were the media partner of WTM. And when the show was also relevant for agents, they did an agent's passport where agents had to go around and go to the stands and get the sort of this form stamped, and then at the end hand it in to win prizes.
Yep.
So I convinced WTM, and there's a sort of marketing assistant, Libby, also helped me a lot with this, that they should do this for bloggers. Let's just give it a go. So we had 8 exhibitors who, from a wide variety of sort of the cross-section in industry. So we had South African Airways, we had 5-star Melia Hotel in Zanzibar, all the way down to, but not to disparage them, an adventure company in Cape Town who do rock climbing up Table Mountain. Mm-hmm. And anywhere in between, we had game lodges, etc. So they all wanted to meet bloggers. They all wanted to obviously interact with them and talk about their products. And they also offered prizes. So obviously all the bloggers that took part, if they filled out this passport, they handed it in. And so we gave away all sorts of prizes. And it was really very popular. And you never know, Alistair, you might see it again in November.
Brilliant. Sounds really good. You mentioned lots of people from Cape Town tourism, but no mention of the very wonderful Sky Grove. I'm not sure. Has she moved on now, or is she still there?
No idea who that is, mate.
Okay, all right, not to worry. She's been, I think, head of communications at Cape Town Tourism for quite a few years, but I have a feeling she's actually stepped down now, so no doubt I'll find out. Either way, normally we talk about your own conferences, but I don't think there's much to report since we last spoke a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I've got a couple of questions for you about your cruise, actually, because I've never been on a cruise, never ever thought about going on a cruise, put off by all sorts of things. Was it your first cruise?
No.
Did you go on your own? Were you sort of like a single traveller?
Not exactly, because it was a fam trip, actually a press trip. There was one other blogger there, but everybody else was traditional local media. The Kent Messenger, the Evening Express Aberdeen, and the News Portsmouth.
Right. Okay.
Oh, and El País in Spain.
Sorry, just to digress. It reminds me of that part of the show on "Have I Got News for You" when they have a guest publication, and it's like Lawnmower Weekly or something. So anyway, we digress. But how did you find it? Was it your first time on Norwegian?
It was my first time with Norwegian, and I actually found it very good. I was keen to do it because I've not been on a ship that size before. I've been on ships, Crystal and Celebrity, for example, around the sort of 2,500 passenger mark, but I've not seen a 4,000 plus ship in
Hmm.
action, and I was pleased and surprised because my fear had been that it would just be overwhelming, and particularly at the sort of the bottleneck points, when everybody's trying to get off the ship or on the ship or all that kind of thing. And in fact, it's managed amazingly well. So that normally the rather sort of long-winded registration and boarding process on day one when you first arrive at the port. I was expecting that to be rather grisly, and in fact it was pretty straightforward. So in that respect, I thought it was good, and I liked Norwegian style. I like the way that they do a lot of things. I thought that was very good. I've been a Celebrity fanboy for a while, not a Crystal one, and yeah, it was in that respect. I rather liked it. I could see myself doing it again.
Okay. Okay. What do you think of the entertainment on board? Because I always think the entertainment's going to be like typical holiday resort naffness, and
No, it's not. I think that's one of their special things. Blue Man Group is world class style entertainment. It's Blue Man Group is packing them out in Las Vegas and in other capitals around the world. So that definitely. Legends of Rock is another one that we didn't see, but is again in kind of repertoire with Blue Man, and that's supposed to be excellent. It's in effect it's tribute bands, tribute acts, and I keep getting the name wrong, but it's Cirque. What's it called? It's
circus.
Cirque. No, it's Cirque Dreams and Dinner. And this is an extraordinary thing. It's permanent on the ship. In fact, and I think they've got it on one of the others as well. But they've got a room, a two-story room, which is circular and just like a circus tent. And the whole thing is like a 90-minute show and meal at the same time. So you go in as a diner and you sit at tables. There are some around the outsides on the ground floor, but they don't have such a good view. And then there's the ones that sort of go into the center of the circle, and there you're right amongst it all. And then the whole show is like a choreographed, Cirque du Soleil or Moulin Rouge. It's very stylish, very lots of comic elements in it, and just a continuous rolling choreographed event, visual event taking place in front of you. It's jugglers, it's acrobats, it's tightrope walkers, it's magicians, it's all of those things. And in amongst it as well, there's a little bit of audience participation. There's one kind of MC, I suppose you'd call him, character who has been, was dragging people out and getting them to perform little scenarios and things. And that was great fun. And in the meantime, you're being served a meal. And up around the top of the tent, there's a circle where people can come and watch the show, the trapeze acts and everything else in front of them. But it's not an eating thing. Around the top, it's like a bar. You can sit there with your drinks like a cocktail bar, and that was really really impressive. That was definitely worth seeing, and there were there's one acrobat act that involves a bath, and this man with the most serious six-pack you've ever seen in your life getting rather wet and dangling provocatively over this bath, and there are, I think, 90% of the female members of the audience that night went away talking about it and probably dreaming about it afterwards as well. So, it had quite an impact one way and another.
Cheers, Alistair.
That'll give you something to think about. Okay. Let's call it a day. We haven't had anybody else join us, and I was checking Twitter just now to see that there wasn't somebody banging at the door trying to find a way to get in. He said, going quickly back to clicking on the wrong thing, going back to Twitter. No. So hold on. Whoops, wrong column. No. Okay. So not to worry. I'll be back here again, usual time next week, next Wednesday, and I'll try and get a core topic and some core guests in for that edition. So until then, Ollie, good to see you again, and everyone else, bye for now.
All the best.